Davinci Resolve just came out with the new public beta Davinci Resolve 16. This includes a new cut page, which I'll be showing you all today. The cut page is a revolutionary new timeline editing page within Davinci Resolve, where their goal is to simplify everything but still have all of the same powers as a regular editing timeline. So with that in mind, let's get into it. The new cut page is the second of the now 7 tabs down here at the bottom. There's still the regular edit page if you want to see all of that. Inside the cut page, there are 4 main categories. The first is this section up here, where this is like the media pool. You can import your media, organize it in here, and just find it in here. This is the media pool. Over here on the right, we have the viewer, which is the same as the regular viewer. And then down here, we have 2 parts: the main, larger, zoomed in timeline, and also the big, zoomed out timeline. So if I add more clips down here, it just extends to fit everything. As you can see, this clip was just added right here. So this is to help you to move quickly without having to worry about zooming in and out, because you can see the full zoomed out timeline and you can also see a slightly more zoomed in timeline. Let's get started with this first section, which is the media pool. So this is not just the media pool, it also houses the transitions page, the titles, as well as the Resolve FX library. But for today, I'm just going to be going over the media page because all the other 3 items are basically the same as Davinci Resolve 15 in the edit page. So this media page has a few new functions. First of all, you can edit or import files and folders directly from the cut page. The second main new functionality of the cut page is the different views. This list view as well as the grid view have all been there for a while now, but they have a new film strip view where you get the folders / bins up top, but below that is all of the files in there, but in a film strip type view. So you can scroll over it and you can see here how, as I'm scrolling over, it kind of shows a little thumbnail of what I'm doing. Not quite sure what I'm doing here, but it just kind of shows a little bit of what's happening. They have a few different points of important information underneath of it as well, like the file name, frames per second, resolution, date, all those things. And you can also sort the media by different parameters. So that's also helpful if you're trying to find things. So that is basically all that is new in this new and updated media page. And there still is the full media page over here if you want to see that as well. Moving over here to the viewer, this viewer is much more than just a viewer. Starting at the top left, you'll see these 3 buttons up here. The first one is the timeline viewer, and that is basically just showing what you're seeing in the timeline. There's also the source clip, where you can double click on a clip and it will show that. Also pretty normal, that's what we used to be able to do. But the main new feature of this is the source tape. This shows you a preview of all of the clips in your edit page. So you can scroll through here and see all the different clips put together into one. And if you want to see it a little bit slower, you can push this button down here, which plays it all through at a updated faster speed, so that way you can view all the clips faster just to kind of see what you have. But the shorter clips, they'll play a little bit slower, that way you don't miss anything. So for example, through here you can see this is a longer clip, so it's playing it pretty fast, but I'm still getting a good idea of what I'm doing inside of these clips. The other main thing with this viewer over here is when you are on the timeline mode, this button down here, which is Tools. This replaces the inspector tab, so that way the entire inspector tab does not have to take up screen space. You can do all the normal things like zooming, moving left and right, up and down, rotating it, pitch and yaw, all of these transform tools. as well as different crop tools, audio levels, so you can adjust those, retiming the speed, lens correction, and stabilizer. All of that gives you an idea of the tools that are in this new cut page that are normally in the inspector tab. The only downside to this that I have found so far is that I can't seem to figure out a way to put keyframes in. So like if I wanted to do a slow zoom out, I would start it here and then move a little bit forward in the timeline and change it with a keyframe so that's back to normal. But as you can see, it just stays at whatever I had it set to. So that's one thing. If you need to do keyframing, you can always switch over to the edit page really quick and do that. So those are the main new tools of the new source viewer inside of the cut page of Davinci Resolve 16. Moving down to the timeline down here, this is where all of the editing happens. This new way of looking at it really reminds me of Final Cut Pro 10 with their magnetic timeline. So I have it here, move it forward. There should be theoretically a space there if I was in the regular edit view. However, when I let go, it just snaps forward. But I did find one way around that, and that is you can drag up a clip, move it on top so that way it has to stay up. It gives a little bit of a gray bar here, which is just black. Then you can move to the end or the beginning. This is actually probably better done in the long view, but you can scooch it up so it's not very long at all. Move back here, and then simply put this clip that you put on top in front of via this blue space right there, and boom, it moved in front of there, giving you a little bit of black space, and then you can adjust it more finely. Like if you're trying to put a little black space to music, then it would show up down here. Another thing to help clean up the interface of this new cut page is that they have linked the audio and the video together if they are together. So normally in the edit page, let me move over here real quickly, these green lines on top of the blue ones. And the green is the audio and the blue is the video. So if I move the video back like that, it's just black, but you can still hear the audio. And vice versa, I can move it so that just the video is playing, no audio. With the cut page, it puts all that together to save space. I'm not sure that you can split it up inside of just the cut page. So if you need to do that minor audio editing like that, you're gonna have to move over to the edit page and do something like that. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before. So any changes you make in the cut page are visible in the edit page, and vice versa, edit page to cut page. So that is a very nice feature that you do not have to worry about losing those things. Now I'm going to talk about these 9 tools down here that you see. These are the last few sections of this video. These first 6 are for inserting clips into the timeline instead of dragging and dropping them. So the first one, you select the clip you want, and then this first one will just take that clip and insert it between 2, so it'll move the 2 apart and put your clip in there right near the nearest cut. So you don't have to be exactly on the cut. So you can just, if you want to, you can move exactly on the cut, but you don't have to. It can just be near it as long as the cut you want it to be is closest to the playhead. Just click this button and the selected clip up here, and it inserted it between these 2 clips for us. So now we have this clip in here. The next one is to append it, which just means add it to the end of the timeline. So if I want this clip at the end, I can just click this, and you'll see down here, when I click append, it will just add that clip to the end of the timeline. The next one is ripple overwrite, and this is kind of the opposite of the first one. Whatever clip the playhead is over, you select a clip, and by clicking this, it will delete the clip that the playhead is over and replace it with the new clip that you selected, but the full length. So like, for example, this one is the one in the timeline is much shorter than this one up here. So when I do this, the timeline will lengthen a little bit. Boom, because it has the entire length. The next of these 6 tools is the close-up tool, and this will just add whatever clip you selected over top, so on the second layer or the third, or whichever one is the highest on there, at 2x zoom. I'll select this clip, click the close-up, and you can see it has added it to the timeline, but at 2x zoom. So if I go into this, the zoom is at 2 times, so I can still move it out to 1 and it will fit the screen. So that's nice if you just need to do like a cut in move or a cut in. It will just, by clicking that, it will insert the clip at 2x zoom, so that way it's an easy cut in like that. The next of these 6 tools is the same thing except without the 2x zoom. So it just places it on top of the timeline just like that. Full resolution, no zooming, nothing, just places it up on top. So the last of these 6 tools is the source overwrite tool, and this is on the rightmost side of those 6. And this is helpful if you want to find a clip and kind of like do 2 switches, or switch between 2 different settings almost. So let me show you an example. So let's say I want to find this one in my timeline and do a little cut sequence with it. So I'll select it in the media pool, and then I will click the source overwrite button. And what this did is it found matching frames in the timeline and lined it up with that. Once I've found this matching here, then I can cut the ends of it. That way they match together. So now what I'm going to do is go into the inspector tab, and on the top one I will just zoom in a little bit and maybe move it to the side a little bit. So then let's say right about here I want it to go back to normal, so I'll cut out this little section until here, and then just delete this part right here. So now when I play through it, zooms out a little bit, going back to the bottom one, and then it comes back in. And so this is another way to get rid of the keyframe issue that I was having problems with earlier. When you are inserting a clip, you can double click on it to pull it up in here, and then you can use the in and out tools, these bottom lines right here, to kind of get a fine adjustment of where you, or to get a coarse adjustment of where you want it. But if the clip is too long, it's hard to do that exactly. You can use these tools on the side, and these can help you do it more frame by frame to help you get more exact with where you want the beginning and end to be. That really helps when you are inserting clips, because then you can get the exact length that you want and not have to insert it and then drag it back to cut it to the size that you want. Last 3 buttons over here are the cut, dissolve, and smooth cut tools. This will take whatever cut you're closest to, because it doesn't necessarily have to be on a cut similar to these ones, and it will add that transition. So if I click dissolve, it will add a dissolve there. And to delete the dissolve, I can just do the cut button and that will just delete it. Same thing with a smooth cut. And a smooth cut is, it looks weird when you use it wrong. So for instance, this would be the wrong kind of cut. But let's say over here I'm talking and I don't want this part through this part. So I can delete that and add a smooth cut. And usually when you use a smooth cut, you want to make it pretty short, like 2 or 6 frames or something. And as you can see, that wasn't perfect, but that's just a general idea. It's good for interviews and talking, because you can fuse together 2 separate talking spots and make it look like there's no cut there. So that is a very helpful tool to use. But once again, if you don't want it, you can just click the cut tool and that will move it away. Another thing that I should mention is the trim tool. Usually in the edit page, you have to push T to get to the trim tool, whereas in the cut page, it's just built in right here. So you can just hover over that, click and drag, and it's the same 4 views as the edit page where you see the beginning and end of each of the first and last cut frame at the beginning and end of that clip. If that makes sense. So the trim tool is a very useful tool, but it's the same tool as the one in the edit page. It's just used a little differently. Instead of pushing T, you just hover over a clip. Another way to cut clips is to use the this tool that you see right here and right here. You can do it like a very rough one. So for example, if you want to cut a lot of stuff out, you can just do it up here in the top. If you want to get a little more precise, you can come down here, and that will give you more of a frame by frame type. You can move it frame by frame basically. And so that is to cut the beginning, or you can put it at the end of a cut and cut the end of a clip. Another way to trim clips is to use this tool, which you can use when hovering over a cut instead of right in front or behind. This will move it back and forth between both clips, as you can see there, so revealing a little bit more of the second one and taking away a little bit of the first one, going this way, and then vice versa when I'm moving forward. When I'm doing that, I can do it up here to be more coarse with it, and then if I want to go to a little bit of a finer, more controlled scrubbing, I can do it down here in this timeline. And if I want to get even more controlled, when I click down here, you can see up here that the viewer changes, and I can just move it side to side up here, and this is a very fine adjustment way to do this. Up here is also where you'll see the transitions. If you do that, then you can change the length of the transition as well up here. And so that's just a few different ways that you can trim and edit the clips inside of the new cut page. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial of kind of like an overview of the new cut page within Davinci Resolve 16. I hope that you found it useful, and I hope that you will consider subscribing. Go check out my other videos here, and subscribe down over there. Well, other videos probably like here-ish. So, yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching. Bye.